What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video from the 10-7 MMA channel. And we are back in the midst of fight week as Jon Jones is about to defend his heavyweight title this Saturday. And what a lot of the discussion seems to be centered around is not the Jon Jones-Stipe fight, which is crazy because I feel like everybody is overlooking this fight and overlooking Stipe and just assuming it's a one and done. And also everybody's asking about why isn't Jon fighting Tom Aspinall? Everybody's calling him a duck. Jon Jones is leaning into it. He's now even saying that even after the Stipe fight, if he does win, he does not want to fight Tom Aspinall, as he's talking about fighting Alex Pereira, which is riling people up incredibly strongly, which is pretty funny. But today in media day, he was asked about Tom Aspinall specifically and about the ducking, and I thought he explained everything perfectly well. Game, set, match, done. It's just a nice, logical, unemotional statement of facts. So let me play this to you and let me let you hear Jon Jones in his own words in case you haven't heard this yet. And then I'm going to talk a little bit more about this. So check this out.
Jon, with that narrative, you've obviously been having a little bit of fun with it in the lead up to this fight. You're saying quack, quack on Twitter, addressing the duck things. What are those fans getting wrong? Why are you not ducking Tom Aspinall? What are they reading wrong about this situation?
Okay, so I feel like narratives have been created that just truly aren't there. You can't duck a man that you were never scheduled to fight. It's like saying you got turned down by a girl who you never even hit on. You know what I'm saying? It's like me and Dana and Hunter have never sat down and talked about Tom Aspinall. He's never been on my radar. Never. I mean, just a moment ago, it was him and Sergey that was fighting. And Sergey could be in this position right now, and I would still be in the same place of I've beat people my whole career, and once I beat them, like the show just goes on. Like the French fans were just all over my case, and I just beat their guy, and I find myself constantly in the same position of, oh wow, he just beat another guy. Like what's next? You know what I mean? Like when I beat Glover Teixeira, he was.
And by the way, this I feel like is a little bit off point because I think the main point that he is making is they never talked about it. Moreover, this is a decision that ultimately lies in the hands of the UFC, who Jon's going to fight next, who people fight next is up to the UFC. It's not up to the fighters. They can advocate for themselves. They can push for themselves. But I think that's the key point. Now, this is a secondary point. I think the point that he's making here is that everybody's freaking out about Tom Aspinall and saying if he doesn't fight Tom Aspinall, he's ruining his legacy. He's doing all these things. And then he's also reminding us that this is look, he's been here a million times. I'm not saying this just because people are saying I'm glazing Jon Jones, this and that. I do think these are just the legitimate, objective facts of the situation. He's had to go through this multiple times where people said, this is the guy to beat you. That's the guy to beat you. Remember, MMA Guru actually picked Ciryl Gane to beat Jon Jones. And when they fought for the heavyweight title, now people look back at it and like nothing. Oh, like Ciryl wasn't that good. That's what he's trying to say, that when people are making such a big deal about Tom Aspinall, he's just reminding people, hey, this has happened to him many times where people said, this is the guy, you need to fight him because he can beat you and you're afraid. And then he fights him and he beats him and then everybody moves on. And this has happened to many of us in life, I imagine, where there's something that just gets hyped up so much. And then it happens and it's totally anticlimactic. And then everybody forgets about it and just moves on like it was nothing. And nobody goes back and apologizes for all the stress that was put on you for this particular thing or whatever it may be. So I think the main point, though, the main takeaway, and he's going to continue on this same point as well, is that the fight happened with Ciryl Gane. He won. He called out Stipe. Everybody was fine with that because at the time, Tom Aspinall was not the interim champ, but he was an amazing contender. A lot of people, he wanted to fight Jon Jones, and he was very respectful about it, and it is what it is. He called out Stipe. The bout was scheduled. And then he was about to fight Stipe. 10 days before the Stipe fight, he got the injury where he tore his pectoral muscle from the bone. After that, they needed a replacement fight. The UFC probably now, in retrospect, maybe was an error. They decided to change. They decided to bring in Tom Aspinall and Sergey. They brought that in as a short notice fight. They put it up for an interim title fight, probably because they still wanted like some good buzz and they hoped that would generate some pay-per-view sales. And then Tom Aspinall won. But that interim title fight was scheduled knowing that this bout was going to be rescheduled. So it was scheduled knowing that it wasn't saying like, hey, we're going to cancel this bout. We're going to have these guys fight for the interim and then Jon Jones will fight the winner. It wasn't that. It was just, hey, we're going to postpone it. Now, he needed, if you watch the tape when he was first told about the injury, he needed 6 to 12 months to recover. So all this happened knowing that he was going to have a 6-month to a 12-month layoff, but they still wanted to conduct the fight. And again, maybe Jon Jones wants this fight, but at the end of the day, it's about the UFC. They're the ones that want the fight. They're the ones that are pushing it. They're the ones that are keeping it as is. So even if people are upset that Jon Jones is maybe like not fighting Tom Aspinall right now, or they're not unifying the title, again, Jon Jones is saying that he doesn't have an interest in fighting Tom Aspinall, but this is not his decision. This is the UFC's decision. This is Dana White's decision. So there's nothing to be ducked. This fight was not offered because he's still going to fight this scheduled fight that has been scheduled for a long time, for over a year, if you include the first time it was scheduled. So that's all he's saying. All right, let me keep listening.
He was on a 20-fight winning streak, and you beat Glover, and then everything just moves on. So for me personally now, it's just like, I get that Tom is an exciting fighter. I get that finally, after 16 years, we found somebody who's 7 years younger than me and 30 pounds bigger than me. Like, we finally found someone who may give me a great challenge. And everyone wants to see it so bad. But for me, it's like, what is it? What's in it for me? He changes nothing if I beat him. Beating Tom is just like beating Cyril Gane.
Now, one thing I will say, and this is a fair point, and I will concede this point, but I was never debating this point anyways. If Jon Jones wins and he decides to stay at heavyweight, obviously, okay, he can say all that he wants, and he can say whatever he wants and say that he's going to fight Alex Pereira next. Obviously, this decision is not Jon's. He can't just invite Alex Pereira up to heavyweight and bypass Tom Aspinall, who's the interim title holder. That would be bananas, but that's not going to happen because, again, the decision is not up to Jon Jones. The decision is up to the UFC. And of course, they're not going to do that. They're going to unify the title. But what Jon Jones is saying, which is his decision, if he wants to do this, he can do this. He's saying he would vacate the title, potentially move back down to light heavyweight, if he's even serious. I don't even know if he's serious. He might be trolling everybody, and fight Alex Pereira. He can do whatever he wants. Any of these guys can do whatever they want. When there were talks about having Conor have a rematch against Khabib, if you remember this, right? He said absolutely not. Even though that was going to be a massive payday, he didn't want to do it because he didn't want to give Conor the attention. Now, people could call that ducking, right? But he said, no, Conor's got to go back and win like 4. I think he was joking, but win like 4 or 5 or even like 10 fights, I think he said at one point. And then maybe he can have another shot at the title, whatever. He wanted him to work his way back up. That was his perspective. Yo, fighters can have their perspective. Merab right now, and you can probably, people do call this ducking. He has made it pretty clear that he doesn't want to fight Umar, right? And people are calling that's more of an obvious duck, but for whatever reason, the UFC scheduled Umar to fight somebody else. Now, I don't know, like that got a little bit of attention at one point, and then he still gets called out here and there. But for some reason, I think people are just all over Jon Jones, and I think the reason is because this story has just caught, it's a multiple reasons. The story just caught fire with all the MMA YouTubers. They're just, especially a lot of folks that do not like Jon Jones. And you might look at me and say, I am a Jon Jones super fan. I'm not. I'm really just, I like Jon Jones and as a fighter, and I want to see him compete. And I feel like we're lucky to get to see him compete at least one more time. And that's dope. And I want to see Stipe fight again. Stipe is an amazing fighter. I think this is a really cool fight, and we should be excited about it. Now, of course, you have all these people that really despise and dislike Jon Jones, and I think they have galvanized the rest of us, all of us fans, or many of us, to think that Jon Jones, whatever, think negatively about him, not want to see this fight, and get it into our minds that he's ducking, but it's just not the reality of the situation. He was offered a fight, the fight got delayed, and now he's fighting the fight that was delayed because per the UFC, that's what they wanted. This is what they've asked for. And again, who calls the shots? It's not the fighters, it's the UFC. He's not bailing out of this fight. He's not trying to, fake an injury or do something crazy. That would be straight up ducking. He's just doing this fight. And by the way, we don't know what's going to happen after this. He may be trolling all of us. This may be a negotiation tactic. I actually don't think it is. I don't think he will fight Tom Aspinall, but this could all be trolling. People have said that. Even Ariel Helwani and DC, Daniel Cormier, have come out and they think that this is a troll job, that Jon Jones is just trying to rile people up, use it as a negotiation tactic, and then he will fight Tom Aspinall, and he's going to get an astronomical amount of money through the negotiation process. I don't know if that's true. I actually think the reason why I don't think this fight is going to happen between Jon and Tom Aspinall is I actually think the UFC doesn't want the fight to happen. I think that they want Jon to retire with essentially an undefeated record as the GOAT of the sport and say, hey, we had the GOAT of the sport in the UFC, under the UFC banner, the entire span of his career. And that's it. I think it has something to do with Francis Ngannou. But anyways, I don't think this fight will ever happen. But again, it's up to Jon. He gets to say no to fights if he wants to out after this fight is concluded. If he doesn't want to fight Tom Aspinall, he doesn't have to. But then he would have to vacate the belt. And that's fine. It's just when people are saying he needs to vacate the belt now, I mean, that's the UFC's call. And after this, if he beats Stipe and then doesn't want to fight Tom Aspinall, I guarantee you the UFC is going to make him vacate the belt. And he will. And then he'll go down and fight Aspinall or fight Pereira. Anyways, let's keep listening.
Has a whole country behind him. He's hot right now. What happens to me after I beat him? Nothing changes for me. So I'm not ducking Tom Aspinall. If I failed to fight Stipe, I would be ducking Stipe because we contractually have been signed up to fight over a year ago. This is Stipe's position. The Tom narrative came out of nowhere. He won a belt, and now suddenly I'm ducking him. I've never had negotiations to even fight him, if this makes sense. So the fans are just ignoring it. They're ignoring all logic, and they just have finally found someone that they think can compete with me, and everyone wants to see it now.
I guess.
I 100% agree with Jon Jones. I do think people are ignoring logic. I think people are getting heated by a lot of these other narratives, again, that are being pushed by these other MMA YouTubers. I've seen people in our comments even be like, yeah, but he used steroids. How is that part of this argument or discussion? That's not logical. Oh, he did X, Y, and Z in his personal life. Not a relevant part of this conversation. If you're claiming that he's ducking somebody, tell me how he's ducking them. How did he get out of, when was the fight scheduled with Tom and how did he get out of it? That never happened. It never happened. He's just fighting the bout that was scheduled. Now, he's riling people up as they're anticipating that he will duck Tom Aspinall after this fight. That's just because of the comments he's saying, but he's just riling people up. Now, again, if he somehow beats Stipe and then, I don't know, is somehow able to have Alex Pereira come up to heavyweight and not fight Tom Aspinall and fight Alex Pereira instead to defend his heavyweight title, yeah, I could see that would be ducking because typically the first objective when you have an interim title holder and a actual title holder, yeah, you need to unify the belt. That's usually the next objective. You're not going to be defending the heavyweight title against somebody who's not the interim title. At least that's just not how it's normally done. Of course, the UFC can do whatever they want, but that's not how it's normally done, and that would be bizarre, and that would call into question sort of the hierarchy of these different rankings and belts in the sport and in the UFC. So I get that, but we don't know if that's going to happen yet. This is just all talk. So right now, in my opinion, what fans need to focus on and just like what Jon is focusing on and what he needs to focus on is the task at hand. Why are we having all these conversations when he's got to focus on Stipe, the greatest heavyweight of all time, who could easily beat him if he's not careful? That's what he needs to focus on. So I think Jon Jones put it perfectly here. We can take out the rest of the stuff about how it's not worth it to him. I get that it's not interesting to him, but that's an irrelevant point right now because that's not the fight that's been scheduled. The fight that's been scheduled is against Stipe per the UFC. So let's get that. Game, set, match. I think Jon Jones got it here. He nailed it on the head. And if you disagree with me, let me know in the comments. I do really appreciate even the negative comments and the people saying I'm stupid and I'm an idiot, because if that's how you feel, I want to hear it. And maybe I'm open to being proven wrong. This is not a hill that I'm just going to die on. I just haven't seen any arguments that have made me change my perspective or feel like this actually is textbook ducking, I think, as a lot of people have said. But at this current moment, you could say some of the talking may imply that he wants to duck in the future, but this is just all talk and hypotheticals. Nothing has even happened yet. We don't even know if he's going to win, right? Why is it such a foregone conclusion? So let's just take a step back. Let's let this play out as it was scheduled, as the UFC wants. Again, the UFC is the decision maker. If you want to be mad at anybody, be mad at the UFC. If you feel that he should really be unifying the belt in this fight and that the Stipe fight should have been scrapped, that's on the UFC. That's not on Jon Jones, because Jon Jones doesn't have the power to say, hey, I want this fight. You're gonna have to wait. He can't do that. So let me know what you think in the comments. And if you do like what you see, feel free to subscribe. I don't know. I've been getting a lot of hate. I even had somebody say they were going to unsubscribe when I posted another video about Jon Jones. So you might lose subscribers, but do what you feel. And join us if you do like what we're saying. We got shows every Monday and Friday at 1:30 p.m. PST with Justin Guitar Hero James, former UFC fighter who is awesome on the mic. And yeah, that's it. Thank you guys so much for joining, and we will see you in the next video. Take it easy.